Good evening, Philippines, and good day, world. It's Thursday, December 21, 2023, and you're watching Newsline World. I'm Kristel Guangco, and we will bring you the top stories we've gathered from all over the globe. President Bongbong Marcos has signed the 5.768 trillion peso national budget into law. Israel's president said that the Jewish state is ready for another ceasefire in Gaza in exchange for the release of the hostages still held by Hamas. A U.S. court ordered the release of about 180 names linked to the Jeffrey Epstein case. The First Lady of Brazil is set to sue Elon Musk's social platform X, formerly known as Twitter. And Thailand's Prime Minister receives backlash due to his four-day holiday break. This and more for tonight's edition of Newsline World. First in the news, President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. led the ceremonial signing of the 5.768 trillion pesos 2024 national budget. In connection with this, PBBM called on the implementers of the national funds to conduct expenditures per the law. Kristel Guangco reports.
The 5.768 trillion pesos national budget for 2024 has been signed into law by President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. in a ceremony held at Malacanang Palace on Wednesday afternoon, December 20th. In his speech, President Marcos hailed the signing ceremony as a presentation of the renewal of the government's annual social contract with taxpayers, ensuring that their contributions are faithfully returned to them in full. Marcos shared that the 2024 national budget outlines a battle plan to combat poverty and illiteracy. This includes particular focuses on food production, ending hunger, protecting homes, and ensuring border security. The 2024 national budget also prioritizes healthcare for the sick, maintaining the health of the citizens, creating jobs, and funding livelihood programs.
It is wrong to say that the budget merely pays for the overhead of the bureaucracy. It is more than that. It funds the elimination of problems that we as a nation must overcome. It is incorrect to say that the budget merely finances the operations of government because its fine print bankrolls the realization of our dreams writ large.
The president also called on agencies to implement the expenditure program in accordance with the law.
Good fiscal stewardship imposes upon us the discipline not to be led into the temptation of bloating what we owe. Good government dictates upon us the duty to spend the appropriations we have cobbled together for the correct purposes, the right way, on time, and on budget.
Marcos also called for recognition of taxpayers who made the budget for the following year possible and reminded agencies implementing the expenditure program to combat red tape that leads to underspending and overspending.
I say this to remind those who will execute this budget that red tape that leads to underspending and overspending that disregards legal guardrails are two sides of the same coin. Implementation delay and illegal deviations inflict the same havoc of denying the people of the progress and development that they deserve.
This is also President Marcos' strong reminder to the implementers of the national budget.
So with this reminder comes the most important budget commandment that we must always heed. We are working for the people, not for ourselves. We are working for the country, not for ourselves.
The 2024 General Appropriations Act, or GAA, aims to achieve the economic goals of the country, specifically identified in the medium-term fiscal framework of the administration, the 8-point socio-economic agenda, and the Philippine Development Plan 2023 to 2028. The 2024 national budget is equivalent to 21.7% of the gross domestic product, 9.5% higher than the 5.268 trillion pesos 2023 budget. For God and for my beloved Philippines, this has been Kristel Guangco, SMNI News.
Overseas Filipino workers, or OFWs, and their families were overjoyed at the 2023 OFW Day presented by the Marcos Jr. administration. MJ Mondihar tells us more.
Laughter filled the entire day as OFWs and their family dependents celebrated the OFW Family Day organized by OWA this year. Families spent the whole day playing raffles and games. Some celebrities are present during the event. This celebration is like an early gift for their members. Because of this, the SMX Convention Center in Pasay City was almost filled with a multitude of people joining the festivities.
Happy Grand OFW Day, mga kabayan!
Marilyn traveled all the way from Parañaque to join the event. In fact, they lined up early in the morning to get in. They hit the jackpot because they personally shook hands with President Bongbong Marcos, the guest of honor at the event.
Masaya po, masaya. Saka talagang siya, yung program ni Pangulong Guangco, siya, talagang nakakatulong talaga sa akin.
56-year-old Esther has been attending the OWA event for 15 years now. But she says it's quite different this year because President BBM is present.
Okay naman, nakakatulong sa mga katulad naming mga pamilya ng OFW.
According to OWA Administrator Arnel Ignacio, they intentionally expanded the event as a way to make up for the many challenges faced by their members and dependents this year.
Dito po natin makikita na kayong mga OFWs at ang inyong mga pamilya ay nasa puso ng administrasyong ito.
This year, OWA increased scholarships for young Filipinos. They opened double the total of 2,500 slots from previous years. Each scholar under the OWA Development Scholarship Program will receive 20,000 pesos per year, while students covered by the Educational Livelihood Assistance Program will receive 5,000 to 10,000 pesos. This is in addition to the assistance and aid provided to returning overseas Filipino workers. During Christmas, OWA welcomes our returning countrymen with gifts and caroling at the Daya Terminal. The program prioritizes distressed OFWs. Before the year ended, President Marcos Jr. was thanked at the event for the programs that he dedicated to our fellow countrymen working abroad and the families they left behind.
Mahal na Pangulo, maraming salamat sa iyong pagmamahal para sa ating mga OFWs at sa kanilang pamilya.
For Ganababula Philippines, I'm Jay Mondejar, SMNI News.
The Philippines has formally inaugurated its latest air surveillance radar system of the Philippine Air Force. This facility was purchased from Japan, which was meant to symbolize a deeper connection between the two nations to strengthen and expand the air and maritime defense of the Philippines. Let's get the details from Paul Montebon.
Defense Secretary Gilbert Chodoro and Air Force officials led the ceremonial acceptance, turnover and blessing of the country's newest additional facilities in support to its defense and monitoring capability through air and maritime activities in the region. The project covers the delivery of 4 units of air surveillance radar system, consisting of 3 FPS 3ME fixed and 1 TPS 14ME mobile radar platforms, together with radar support facilities. The Philippines bought the radar system under a government-to-government deal from Japan's Mitsubishi Electric Corporation, which is part of the AFP Modernization Horizon Plan 2, to be used under the 580th Aircraft Control and Warning Wing of the Philippine Air Force, which costs 5.5 billion pesos.
Importante po ito dahil makikita po natin sa layo ng 300 nautical miles ang ma-intrusion sa ating airspace. Kaugnay ng iba pang mga sistema, magkakaroon tayo ng klarong picture, hindi lamang sa West Philippine Sea, kundi sa ibang lugar ng Pilipinas, sa sea, air, domains, kung sino ang pumapasok sa ating EEZ.
This is just one of the 4 air surveillance radar system, while the remaining 3 is expected to be delivered in the country soon. These radars can detect fighter jets and identify threats and intrusion within the Philippine exclusive economic zone. With this, the Philippine Air Force will be able to respond promptly to safeguard the country's economic interests.
Other capabilities of the radars include the active electronically scanned array, a range of more than 300 nautical miles, a 95% detection probability, and multiple electronic countermeasure capabilities. Additionally, they feature air defense mode and ballistic missile defense mode. The Department of National Defense earlier stated that these new projects are part of the Philippine government's effort to further develop enhance and sustain its air and maritime domain awareness. It also strengthened the long-standing cooperation between the Philippines and Japan. Philippine Air Force personnel who were projected to operate and maintain the ASRS were sent to Japan for comprehensive training, while additional training within the country was also conducted. The majority of ASRS coverage will be in large areas of Luzon, the southern areas of the country, and the southern portion of the West Philippine Sea.
This is a strategic location, as you saw in the audiovisual, even since before, because this is an exit point of our international airspace and an entry point to Philippine airspace, and it is naturally open to the West Philippine Sea.
For God and my country, the Philippines, reporting Paul Montebon, SMNI News.
The Japanese government is considering exporting guided missiles made in Japan to the United States after the U.S. government had been asking supply of the weapons. Natsumi Kojima reports.
Japan plans to revise its guidelines on defense equipment transfers as early as Friday. The move will pave the way for the government to lift its ban on the export of finished defense equipment made under license from foreign entities.
The Patriot Advanced Capability 3 is a surface-to-air guided missile system that has a proven hit-to-kill capability. PAX-3 missiles possess high firepower, the ability to track numerous targets simultaneously, and the ability to operate in a severe environment due to their all-weather capabilities. It is designed to counter tactical ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, and advanced aircraft while providing tactical functions such as airspace surveillance, target detection, tracking, and missile guidance, to name a few. Under the current defense equipment guidelines, Japan can only export components to the U.S. that are made under a license from U.S. companies. However, the revised guidelines would allow the export of finished products to any licensor countries, including the U.S.
If the deal pushes through, it will be the first time Japan will export any weapon in a finished product in line with the Self-Defense Forces law. Ijo Nihon Karako Jimatsumi, News Otsutai Shimashita, SMNI News, Japan.
The First Lady of Brazil plans to sue the social media platform X, formerly known as Twitter, owned by billionaire businessman Elon Musk, after her account was hacked last week. Francine Sagarino tells us more.
Brazilian First Lady Rosangela Janja Lula da Silva is ready to file charges against social media platform X, whether it's in the United States or in Brazil. Janja claimed that the alleged hacker entered her account on December 11. The culprit posted several messages including insults against the First Lady and Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. She also called on the government of Brazil to regulate social media platforms and hold them accountable for the actions of their users. Lula also supported the importance of social media regulation worldwide. The Brazilian president, however, admitted that the issue is not an easy one to solve. Reporting this has been Francine Segarino, SMNI News.
The United Arab Emirates is working on a potentially groundbreaking research that will help them predict the next malaria outbreak amid the global fight against a life-threatening disease. Researchers at Mohammed bin Zayed University of Artificial Intelligence based in Abu Dhabi are making significant efforts to combat malaria, a life-threatening disease primarily found in tropical countries. The team aims to predict geographical areas vulnerable to the disease based on potential weather conditions, heat, and humidity. This could be done by using new technology and data techniques, as well as maximizing the capability of AI, such as vision sensors and cameras, to detect the location of mosquitoes and where they will migrate next. The researchers hope their framework could also be used to fight other diseases besides malaria. The latest data from the World Health Organization showed that an estimated 250 million people contract the disease every year. The mosquito-transmitted disease killed 600,000 in 2021 alone. The President of Israel signaled that his country is prepared to offer another ceasefire in Gaza in exchange for the release of hostages currently held by Hamas. Jean Domingo reports.
After a brutal and bloody exchange of fire between Israel and Hamas, both sides agreed to forge a temporary ceasefire in late November, which eventually collapsed on December 1. Israel and Hamas immediately resumed their military operations and blamed each other for the fallout of the truce. But now Israeli President Isaac Herzog said that the Jewish state is ready to offer another ceasefire in exchange for the remaining hostages held by Hamas. Speaking to a group of foreign ambassadors recently, Herzog said, and I quote, "Israel is ready for another humanitarian pause and additional humanitarian aid in order to enable the release of hostages," end of quote. He also said that the responsibility lies fully with Hamas. Israeli media reports say that the chief of Israel's Mossad spy agency, David Barnea, held a meeting in Poland with the director of U.S. Central Intelligence Agency, William Burns, and Qatari Prime Minister Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al Thani to discuss a potential new hostage deal between Israel and Hamas. Meanwhile, Hamas chief leader Ismail Haniyeh is scheduled to visit Egypt on Wednesday to discuss the potential ceasefire, according to a report by Times of Israel, citing a source close to Hamas. Reporting, this has been Jean Domingo, SM9 News.
Humanitarian aid trucks have begun entering Gaza from Israel for another border crossing. Jane Kodnita reports.
Humanitarian aid trucks started entering the Gaza Strip from Israel through the Kerem Shalom border crossing on Sunday. Various trucks loaded with food and medicine for Palestinian civilians were seen waiting at the crossing. To recall, on Friday, the government of Israel approved the temporary delivery of aid to Gaza through the Kerem Shalom. Since then, 79 trucks of aid convoys have reportedly crossed the border. Rafah border crossing was the only transit point for humanitarian aid before the Kerem Shalom checkpoint was opened. It's the first time humanitarian aid would be distributed directly to Gaza Strip from Israel since Hamas launched an unprecedented attack on southern Israel on October 7. The war resulted in the deaths of thousands on both sides. Israeli officials reported that around 1,200 people were killed on October 7, mostly civilians. Hamas also kidnapped over 200 people, according to Israeli officials. Israel declared war on the group and a complete siege of Gaza with a large-scale campaign of airstrikes. A ground incursion began at the end of the third week, with Israeli leaders vowing to wipe out Hamas. The Israeli Defense Forces claimed that Hamas locations and infrastructures were targeted in the response. The IDF also claims to have exposed tunnels made by Hamas. Meanwhile, Palestinian officials have reported that at least 19,088 people have been killed and more than 54,000 injured. United Nations experts warn against collective punishment for the people of Gaza before predicting a humanitarian crisis, and then claimed that hell is settling in for the region. According to UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, there are currently 1.5 million internally displaced people in Gaza. Of this number, 725,000 are sheltering in 149 UNRWA facilities, 122,000 in hospitals, churches, and public buildings, 131,134 in 94 non-UNRWA schools, while the remainder are with host families. Reporting, this has been Jane Konita, SM9 News.
In other news, Iran prepares to receive one of the most capable fighter jets owned by the Russian Air Force since a deal to purchase the military aircraft was finalized last month. Melchizedek Cadiz has the details.
Russia's Sukhoi Su-35 fighter jets and helicopters will soon arrive in Iran's shores. The multi-role fighter is designed to destroy air, ground, and surface targets at considerable distances. It was also touted for its great combat power, high speed, and great flight range. The finalized deal marks strengthening military ties between Russia and Iran. It also paves the way for the Islamic Republic to replace its aging fleet of aircraft. Even if the deal fails, analysts warn that the current status of Iran's Air Force should not be underestimated, since it could still fight from its home base and gather support from the rest of the military. Reporting, this has been Melchizedek Cadiz, SM9 News, Kuwait.
The Prime Ministers of Australia and New Zealand have discussed strengthening their defense ties. New Zealand expressed interest in exploring the benefits of joining an expanded AUKUS pact that focuses on shared military technology. Gillian Libert has the news.
New Zealand's new Prime Minister Christopher Luxon chose Australia as his first overseas trip since winning the general election in October, with security talks as his main priority during their meeting earlier today.
Albanese welcomed Luxon at the Kirribilli House in Sydney on Wednesday, which serves as the secondary official residence of the Prime Minister of Australia. The Prime Minister of New Zealand said his country is interested in joining the AUKUS Pillar 2 and is considering sharing advanced military technologies with the US and Britain. The partnership focuses on the development and sharing of advanced military capabilities, including artificial intelligence, electronic warfare, and hypersonics between Australia, the United Kingdom, and the United States. Under the AUKUS deal, the United States and the United Kingdom have agreed to provide Australia with a fleet of submarines powered by US nuclear technology. Luxon also held trade and business talks with Australian officials. The UK Foreign Affairs Select Committee also recommended that Japan and South Korea join the security partnership.
The defense and foreign ministers from both countries would meet in early 2024 to discuss security and defense plans beneficial for both countries. Reporting from New South Wales, this has been Gillian Libwood, SMNI News, Australia.
The Prime Minister of Thailand is currently on a 4-day holiday break. However, his decision to take a temporary break from work has sparked controversy. Chapman Kapasa Magasan has the news.
Thai Deputy Prime Minister of Thailand came to the aid of Prime Minister Thavisin, who received a wave of criticisms for spending a 4-day holiday break.
Deputy Prime Minister Phumtham Wechayachai stepped up to defend Sethar as the Thai Premier received criticisms for spending some time with his family. Striking back at detractors, Phumtham clarified that the Prime Minister isn't tied to the government house, indicating he can work from anywhere. He added that other ministers are equally entitled to get some time off for themselves. One of the deputy prime ministers has been assigned to take over while the prime minister is on break. To recall, the prime minister submitted his request to go on leave from December 19 to 22 before he left the country to attend the ASEAN-Japan Commemorative Summit in Tokyo on December 17.
During a high-profile meeting with leaders in Japan, Sethar revealed his plans to create seamless partnership among Thailand, Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia to boost the country's tourism sector. รายงานจากราชบุรี นายชันมงคล วิสมัยโกศล SMS ประเทศไทย สวัสดีครับ
The death toll from a 6.2 magnitude earthquake that struck the Chinese province of Gansu rose to 131 as rescuers endured freezing conditions in the hope of finding more survivors. Anissa de Guzman has the story.
Residents in Gansu province are still reeling from the aftermath of the country's deadliest earthquake since 2014. Meteorological authorities in China reported a 6.2 magnitude earthquake, while the U.S. Geological Survey recorded a magnitude of 5.9 with a depth of 10 kilometers. President Xi Jinping deployed thousands of rescue teams to the impoverished region amid fears the death toll could still increase in the coming days. The freezing conditions and treacherous terrains delay rescue efforts, along with the disruption of power and water supplies. The earthquake was strong enough to destroy villages and reduce buildings into rubble, while survivors are struggling to cope with sub-zero temperatures in makeshift evacuation camps. Hundreds of medics, as well as thousands of firefighters, police officers, and soldiers are helping with the rescue efforts. The earthquake has damaged 207,204 houses as of Tuesday. China is vulnerable to earthquakes as the country is located in an area surrounded by active tectonic plates, while Gansu is one of China's poorest and most ethnically diverse regions. Reporting for Newsline World, Anissa de Guzman, SMNI News.
Philippine ambassador to China is expected to play a significant role in resolving the West Philippine Sea dispute, according to international lawyer and former presidential spokesperson, Attorney Harry Roque. Here's the report from Andrea Santos.
Ang pinakamagbibigay ng best advice, yung ating sugo sa Beijing, si Jaime Flor Cruz, na bihasang mamamahayag, respetado ng mga opisyalis ng China at nakakaintindi ng pag-iisip ng mga Chino.
This is the reaction of former presidential spokesperson Attorney Harry Roque regarding the decision of President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. to formulate a new strategy to address the dispute in the contested territory of the West Philippine Sea. It can be recalled that President Marcos shunned the proposal to send Chinese ambassador to the Philippines, Wang Shilian, back to Beijing following the latest tensions in the disputed territory. Roque expressed satisfaction that President Marcos noticed that the Philippine government's actions were not effective.
Mabuti naman napansin ni Presidente na hindi umiepekto yung mga bully, tigil nyo pagbubuli sa amin. Habang nagsasabi tayo na itigil ang pagbubuli, lalo naman tayong binubuli, hindi nyo ba napapansin yan?
Meanwhile, Roque suggested solutions regarding the territorial dispute in the West Philippine Sea.
Sa akin po, ang solusyon dyan is, well, number one, recognition na ang malaking bahagi talaga ng West Philippine Sea at ng South China Sea ay high seas na po pwedeng gamitin ng lahat. So hindi dapat pag-awayan. Pero siyempre, kapag ang China naman ay nanindigan na ito ay municipal waters ng China dahil ito ay mga karagatan na nagbubunga sa mga isla na merong exclusive economic zone at saka territorial sea, dyan tayo hindi magkakaintindihan. Pero malinaw po as an issue of fact na parang 6 lang sa mga isla na high tide elevations ang tinatawag po natin dyan, yung permanenteng nakikita mo kahit high tide o low tide, ang po pwede magkaroon ng 12 nautical miles territorial sea kung saan mapapasailalim yan sa soberenya ng mga nag-aangkin ng bansa. Siguro panahon na rin para talagang himukin natin ang China na dali na natin itong resolution nito sa pag-nag-aagawang isla sa hukuman, sa International Court of Justice. Kasi hindi naman po sakop yan noong desisyon ng International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea kasi yun po ay karagatan lamang. Iba po yung batas na umiiral sa pinag-aagawang isla sa batas na umiiral sa pinag-aagawang mga karagatan.
Reporting, this has been Andrea Santos, SMNI News.
Turkey once again links the sale of F-16 fighter jets and the removal of arms embargoes by NATO allies as a way for Ankara to easily approve Sweden's long-awaited bid to become a member of the world's largest military alliance. Trisha Molina has the details.
It has been 1 year and 7 months since Sweden formally applied to join the North Atlantic Treaty Organization or NATO. But until now, the application has faced hurdles from Turkey and Hungary. Sweden and Finland applied to become NATO members on May 18, 2022, but the latter has since moved on and became the 31st member of the alliance on April 4, 2023. In July, Swedish Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson declared he had secured Erdogan's support for Sweden's membership bid at the NATO summit in Vilnius. But hopes of ratification to follow shortly after the summit turned into dust, as the subject has not even reached the Turkish parliament's agenda. In October, Erdogan submitted a bill to ratify Sweden's NATO membership. However, the measure needs to be passed by the Parliament's Foreign Affairs Commission before it can be sent to the General Assembly for ratification. On Monday, Erdogan announced that the ratification of Sweden's NATO membership depends on the U.S. Congress's approval of Turkey's long-time request to purchase F-16 fighter jets. Moreover, the Turkish leader said that Canada and other NATO allies must lift arms embargoes imposed on Turkey to hasten the process. Hungary and Turkey remain the only 2 countries that have not ratified Sweden's bid to join NATO. NATO requires the unanimous approval of all its existing members before it can admit a new country to join the alliance. Reporting for Newsline World, Trisha Molina, SMNI News.
Senator Francis Tolentino has reminded the Movies and Television Regulatory Board, or MTRCB, about press freedom following the suspension of 2 television programs. Troy Gomez reports.
Senator Francis Tolentino warns the Movies and Television Regulatory Board, or MTRCB, about violations of freedom of the press. During the kapihan sa Manila Bay, Tolentino was asked about the suspension of 2 SMNI programs. And according to the veteran lawmaker, press freedom holds a higher position in the hierarchy of laws globally.
Freedom of the press occupies a higher position in the hierarchy of rights.
Hierarchy of rights.
Anywhere in the world, except perhaps in countries with monarchy or authoritarian governments.
To recall, the MTRCB recently suspended the program Laban Kasama ang Bayan, or the Fight Together with the Nation. The MTRCB also suspended Gikan sa Masa para sa Masa, a program hosted by former President Rodrigo Duterte. These 2 programs were suspended in response to complaints received by their office, but the MTRCB suspension of the programs garnered negative reactions from netizens. The 2 SMNI programs in question are known for criticizing the local communist terrorist group CPP, NPA, and DF. Several senators also have expressed support for SMNI and press freedom. Senator Bato de la Rosa stated that SMNI is the only TV network in the country that fearlessly opposes the Communist Party of the Philippines, New People's Army, and National Democratic Front, or CPP, NPA, and DF.
I am strongly supporting SMNI dahil alam ko sinusugal ng SMNI yung kanilang lahat ng resources, pati na rin yung kanilang buhay, yung kanilang safety ng kanilang buhay. Kanilang sinusugal para sa laban dito sa CPP, NPA, NDF. So kaisa po ako ng SMNI. Kung saan papunta ang SMNI, nandoon din ako.
Senator J.V. Ejercito also voiced support for SMNI in the name of press freedom. Even Senator Chis Escudero spoke on the same matter, saying he can't blame anyone for thinking that the government seems to be conspiring against SMNI. Senator Escudero had previously expressed support to the National Task Force to End Local Communist Armed Conflict, or NTF-ELCAC, due to the positive impact of its programs on communities against insurgency. Reporting for God and My Country, the Philippines, Troy Gomez, SMNI News.
Attorney Harry Roque views Senator Francis Tolentino's resignation as the chairman of the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee is possibly linked to his re-election bid. Here's the report. Former presidential spokesperson Attorney Harry Roque was surprised by Senator Francis Tolentino's resignation as chairman of the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee, as many senators have aspirations for that particular position.
Nakakagulat talaga itong anunsyo ni Senator Tol kasi pinag-aagawan niyang Blue Ribbon. At matindi ang agawan nila dyan. Kaya tuloy hindi sumapi sa mayorya itong si Senator Alan Peter Cayetano kasi hindi niya nakuha yung Blue Ribbon Committee. No? Now, ang kapangyarihan ng Blue Ribbon Committee, siya ay tagabantay ng issue ng korupsyon at kabalastugan sa gobyerno. So, dahil ang Senado ay yan ay mga independent republics, no, na tinatawag dahil ang mandato nila ay galing mismo sa taong bayan, gaya ng presidente, pwede talaga nilang babira ang nakaupong presidente kung gugustuhin nila. No?
Meanwhile, Roque has something to say on the possible reason as to why Senator Tolentino decided to resign.
Ang tingin kong tunay na dahilan dyan is re-electionista itong si Senator Tol. Una-una, kung ikaw ay re-electionista, umaasa ka na ikaw ay kukunin ng presidente as part of the slate. Hindi kasi tayo ngayon malinaw kung magkakaroon ng unified slate ang mga Duterte at mga Marcos dahil nga sa mga ginagawa ng ating House Speaker. No? Bagamat siya ay nasa Kamara, alam naman natin pinaka-close advisor na yan ng Presidente. So baka mamaya hindi magkaroon ng unity slate. So kapag ikaw ay Blue Ribbon, syempre expose mo kabalastugan, ayaw mo na magalit sa iyong administrasyon. Kaya bibitiw ka na dyan sa posisyon na yan dahil ikagagalit sa yan ng Presidente na pinupulaan mo yung kanyang administrasyon. No? So yan ang tingin kong tunay na dahilan.
Aside from stepping down from the Blue Ribbon Committee, Senator Tolentino also revealed his resignation as a member of the Commission on Appointments. Tolentino explained that his resignation from these 2 powerful Senate committees is in line with the urgent need to focus on the Senate Special Committee on Maritime and Admiralty Zones, of which he is also the chairman. Reporting for Newsline World, this has been Kristel Guangco, SMNI News. Jeffrey Epstein's associates may soon be publicized after a U.S. federal court ordered to unseal the names of about 180 people associated with Epstein who had committed suicide in 2019. Andrea Santos reports.
Judge Loretta Preska of the Southern New York District has ruled to unseal in full the documents that contain the identifying information of some 180 people linked to Jeffrey Epstein. In a 51-page order released on Monday, Judge Preska noted that the previous hearings have established that the names would not remain redacted indefinitely. The names of about 180 of Epstein's associates are set to be released in the first days of 2024. Preska has given the people affected by the order 14 days to appeal the decision. But after that, the lawyers must prepare the documents for unsealing pursuant to this order, and post the documents on the docket. This move is expected to identify some Epstein's victims, his close associates and investigators and journalists who covered the case. But some of the names will remain unsealed, and this includes minor victims and at least one person who was wrongly identified as a sexual predator by a reporter. The documents are related to the 2015 lawsuit by Virginia Giuffre, who accused Epstein and his ex-girlfriend Ghislaine Maxwell of sexually trafficking her when she was 17 years old. The case was settled in 2017 with most of the evidence remaining under seal. However, a lawsuit filed by activist Mike Cernovic resulted in the declassification of the lawsuit in July 2019, at which point Jeffrey Epstein was arrested on federal sex trafficking charges. Many sought to know about the case of Jeffrey Epstein, a convicted pedophile who died in a New York jail. He was a former financier who had long socialized with rich and powerful, flew then to his private little St. James Island in the Caribbean via private jet known as the Lolita Express. Epstein was indicted in 2019 on federal charges of operating a sex trafficking ring. He then committed suicide in jail while awaiting trial. Authorities said that the official cause of his death was suicide by hanging. Meanwhile, Maxwell, Epstein's ex-girlfriend and longtime accomplice, was also indicted and convicted in 2022. Even after Epstein's death, the U.S. Attorney's Office in New York indicated that it would focus on the conspiracy charges against Epstein. This move could allow prosecutors to charge individuals involved in the scheme. Reporting, this has been Andrea Santos, SMNA News.
And before we end, may you be inspired with the message of the appointed Son of God. We cannot repay the Creator. All He needs from us is our gratefulness. And for our Christmas countdown, it's only 4 days to go before Christmas. And that's all for today's edition. For more news update, you may visit SMNANewsChannel.com or follow us on our official social media accounts on Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Thank you for watching Newsline World, and we thank our beloved Pastor Apollo Siki Beloy, for the opportunity to be part of this program. For God and my beloved country, the Philippines, I'm Kristel Guangco, and this is Newsline World.